Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to our next presentation. Linda Smith is going to be our presenter, and she's the Associate Dean for Academic Programs here at the Graduate School of Library and Information Science in Illinois.
Okay, so, yeah, all right, thanks. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk. And first, I'll say thanks to the Syracuse presenters. I'm a Syracuse PhD alum, but it's great to hear what's happening at Syracuse many years after I left there. So, but actually, Syracuse will be mentioned in this presentation. So, in the call for presentations, there was online education was a specific topic. And so this gave me an opportunity to reflect on what we have been doing, as you'll see from my, this works. Oops. Okay, let's go back. Let's try that. Okay, let's just try that. Okay, it's working now. Sorry. Okay. So my subtitle of alternative subtitle, 20 years in 20 minutes. We were told we could talk for have a 30-minute presentation, 15-minute or 20-minute talk. So what are the acronyms? And again, in our field, many acronyms, but some of these you may be familiar with, others less. So LEEP, what the original spell out when we began the program, our online enrollment option, was Library Education Experimental Program. And so it's continued as the online enrollment option for our master's program, and then more recently for our certificate of advanced study. The next, acronym WISE, stands for Web-Based Information Science Education Consortium, and it includes 16 LIS programs for course sharing. The next acronym, CPLA, Certified Public Library Administrator, and that's a voluntary post-master's certification program that the American Library Association administers, but we are one of the course providers. And finally, MOOC, again, that's obviously not specific to Illinois, massive open online course. And so again, massive open, so open access, unlimited participation via the web. Okay, so we have, so what is the context then for talking about online education? If you go to the American Library Association website, the accreditation section, they have a directory of accredited programs, and you can search that directory by mode of delivery. And so when I did that last week, of the 59 programs, that's US and Canadian, there were 29 that, again, self-designated themselves as fully online, and 22 that still are primarily face-to-face with select online courses. And then we're in the middle of being primarily, or having an option that's largely online with some face-to-face. And I wanted to highlight the accreditation standards. I'm actually, this afternoon, later, getting on a plane to go do a site visit for another school, an accreditation site visit. And we're being asked as reviewers to think about the requirements of the accreditation standards, regardless of forms or locations of delivery. So that means the standards encompass curriculum, faculty, profile of the students, the resources that students have access to, and so forth. So in any case, there's that context for this growth in online programs is coupled with the expectation that they need to maintain standards comparable to a face-to-face program. Sorry. So I appreciate the stance of this symposium, which is critical perspectives. And so I wanted to share a link to something called a Bill of Rights and Principles for Learning in the Digital Age. And it's was actually, I discovered it because it was covered in the Chronicle, but it was, again, a group of people who care a lot about online education, who were, let's say, probably annoyed, frustrated at all the hype around MOOCs. And so they formulated, and some of these are very distinguished researchers like John Seeley Brown. So anyway, it was a collective statement. We believe that online learning represents a powerful and potentially awe-inspiring opportunity to make new forms of learning available to all students worldwide, whether young or old, learning for credit, self-improvement, employment, or just pleasure. We believe that online courses can create meaningful as well as massive learning opportunities. So again, keep that in mind as we talk about what's happened. So just to emphasize, my theme in this talk is expanding access. So starting with LEEP, 1996, this is why I said 20 years and 20 minutes. 1996, we started with a cohort 1 of 31 students, primarily from Illinois, but our first cohort had at least one student from Alaska. At that time, we were offering 3 courses per semester, so not a lot of choice if you were in this option. And we had to use, again, this was before commercial course management systems, so we developed technology in-house to support instruction. Fast forward almost 20 years to 2015. It's an enrollment option. We're reaching about 300 students from across the U.S., and we have, over time, had students from other countries as well. We also are reaching students who enroll for continuing professional development. That's called our community credit option. And on-campus students who also are enrolled in courses where that's the only option or their option of choice. And so at this point, fall, spring, summer, we're offering about 100 online course sections per year. And we're very fortunate now to have much more sophisticated technology and reliable technology through Moodle and Blackboard Collaborate. So WISE, WISE is an online consortial initiative. And again, from the beginning, and my partner in this was Bruce Kingma, who's a faculty member at Syracuse. We had the goal of developing a consortial effort that would focus on quality and accessibility of online LIS education. And another piece, and so again, this was still fairly early in online education, and Syracuse had been a pioneer, and we were, shortly thereafter. So we wanted to collaborate with faculty from other schools and focus on what does it mean to teach quality courses, how do we help faculty become more expert in teaching online, and how can we share courses. We can't all teach all the courses that our students might want, so how can we share courses? So the model is to have a consortium. We currently have 16 institutions in 4 countries, US, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. And I've given you the URL for the website for the consortium. So to talk a bit more about WISE, the member schools, so prior to a semester, so leading up to now to summer and fall, each of the participating schools identifies online courses that are going to have some space for students from other WISE schools. And so we identify students who would like to take courses from another school, and again, we would list a course from Syracuse, for example, if that was not comparable to a course that we taught here. So it would actually expand access to specialized courses. And so once approved, so if students submit requests, once approved by the WISE coordinator who's based at Syracuse, the student registers here for a 590 section, and but participate in the course at Syracuse or at Pittsburgh or at Rutgers or any of the other partner schools, whichever one happens to be offering the course that they're approved for. But they're registering here, they're paying tuition here, their grades are recorded here, and so we talk about it as a pre-approved transfer in the sense that we have done the vetting of that course and identified it as a course that will accept towards a student's course completion. And so the benefit of this model is students gain access to specialized courses. So turning to CPLA and WISE+. So CPLA is using technology to offer non-credit continuing education opportunities. And so our particular implementation has been short courses, so using our online technology, and the course extends over 6 weeks. And so one example is budget and finance. So the program, based in ALA-APA, identified competencies for public library administrators, and then when we first started the partnership, we identified individuals who could teach the courses, develop the content that would meet the expectations for competency development. WISE Plus was partnerships with professional associations. So it was a next stage in our consortial model, and the idea is that we're all schools, we offer courses for graduate credit, that there could be opportunities to partner with professional associations and fill gaps in what they're able to do themselves. Professional associations are very involved in professional development, but they can't offer credit-bearing courses, for example. So we actually led the testing of this model when we partnered with the American Theological Library Association to develop a course on theological librarianship and to make that available to their members for continuing professional development, as well as to our students and also to WISE students, because that's an example of a course that is quite uncommon across LIS programs. And so there was an interest both from other WISE schools and then also from individuals who hadn't had a chance to take such a course in their own programs as they were, while they were still earning a degree. So if you think about the benefits of WISE and WISE Plus, I think for WISE, again, students and instructors enjoy the benefits of a diverse class environment with students contributing unique perspectives from various schools. So a few years ago, I taught science reference, and a couple of my students were from New Zealand. That would not, and living in New Zealand at the time, so that was possible via WISE. Then, again, they bring diverse professional experiences in geographic locations. With WISE Plus, again, I think for me and I think other schools in the consortium, it's been really interesting to partner more closely with professional associations and reflect on what can we do to meet needs for professional development, and how can that complement what the professional associations are already doing. So what about MOOCs and all the hype around MOOCs? This is one area where I can't talk from personal experience or even experience at the school level. At the campus level, we have experience in MOOCs. But we haven't gone down that path yet. I wanted to cite the example of Jeff Pomerantz, who's a faculty member at Chapel Hill, and he's an alum, a master's alum from Simmons. So he did a blog post for their blog talking about his experience as an instructor of a MOOC for Coursera. So that's the platform that's also used here at Illinois. We partner with Coursera as well. So he had a MOOC on metadata, organizing and discovering information. And I actually was a student in that MOOC along with thousands of other students. And so Jeff reflected on that experience and said, you know, teaching that MOOC, I taught more students in one MOOC than I have in 12 years as a faculty member at Chapel Hill. And Chapel Hill has a few online courses, but this was the first teaching experience that Jeff had as an online instructor. And so he still is raising the question, and so I think it's worth reading his blog post for more, you know, nuanced discussion of what are the pros and cons of offering a MOOC. And so he said, given this ability to connect with students worldwide, are MOOCs worthwhile for universities to invest in? So again, I don't have the answer to that question, and he offers some insights based on his experience. So the final slide, before we have some discussion, I'm going back to this Bill of Rights, and again, just quoting from what I think are some significant observations that they make. We're aware of how much we don't know that we have yet to explore, the full pedagogical potential of learning online, of how it can change the way we teach, the ways we learn, and the ways we connect. And again, emphasizing that what our goal should be in online teaching, our broad goal is to inspire an open, learner-centered dialogue around the rights, responsibilities, and possibilities for education in the globally connected world of the present and beyond. And so again, they're individuals who are very thoughtful about education, teaching, learning, and the potential role of technology. And I didn't quote it directly, but one of their concerns is that the model of MOOCs as a pedagogical model is taking us backwards in the sense that it's very lecturer-centric and not, I mean, there are forums, but, and there's peer-to-peer communication, peer-to-peer assessment, peer-to-peer grading, but that it's, instead of the discussion that, you know, much of the earlier discussion about online was moving from the sage on the stage to the guide on the side. Well, now we're back to the sage on the stage in the MOOC environment with the videos and, you know, focusing on the master teacher. And there's a lot of discussion about, okay, who can deliver? And is that a compatible model for everyone's strengths as an online teacher, or does it privilege certain modes of instruction? So I put together a handout which is a bibliography of publications that we've, well, I or others from Illinois have been involved in, plus the link to the bibliography, or sorry, the Bill of Rights and Principles. So again, as I said at the beginning, I appreciate the stance of this conference, raising questions, including about online education. So I hope that providing, again, 20 years in 20 minutes gives you some sense of how we've, I think, expanded certainly my initial understanding of what it's possible to do with online teaching, and that we still have a lot to learn. And every time there's a new technology or, again, a new potential partnership, we have to sort of reinvent or evolve what we're doing to encompass that.
Okay, great, thanks. I just want to take a moment to talk a little bit about what's going on here on the chat. So it looks like, looks like Ina's actually taking a WISE course right now that she's really happy with. Yeah, I'm loving it so far, and they're talking a little bit about, it's a great way to hear from other students across the country and their programs and dealing with very different communities, and it's every week. So, and it looks like some people took courses with Jeff, which is great. So yeah, I'm just going to open up the floor for any questions. I have a question myself, but I will wait.
Hi, this is Alice again, second year's master's student. And Linda, you were saying that when we started the LEEP program, we sort of had to develop the technologies to be able to do so. Can you speak a little bit more about that? What sorts of things you considered and how you solved those various problems?
So, the very first year, we actually used, and I'm going to blank on the name of the technology, but it was we used open source platforms that allowed two-way chat. I mean, there was not two-way audio, much less video. But it was one of our interests was finding technologies that could support real-time, synchronous communication. So the initial platform was just, text-based and using open source. Then we had a faculty member and a teaching assistant. He was a doctoral fellow was named Vince Patone, who was a doctoral student, and then shifted direction and ended up being a developer that, again, put together tools that enabled us to do to present slides, to be able to text chat, and to do one-way audio. So that was progress, because you could hear the instructor, you could interact with other students, and you could see slides. And then we had our own in-house, we didn't have Moodle, but we had some type of equivalent in terms of forums and not ways to upload assignments and so forth, but ways to have asynchronous discussion as well. So it was functionally, it had some of what Moodle does and some of what Blackboard Collaborate supports, but not, and again, it had to be respectful that some of the students were dialing in and didn't have high bandwidth connections. When Rayanne Montague was here as our Assistant Dean for Student Affairs, she began life as a LEEP student with Illinois, as a LEEP student in Mexico. And so, you had students in locations that didn't have high bandwidth. So I wasn't directly involved in the development, but it was really trying to not a high-end programmer, but someone who had the tech skills and put things together to support the functionality that we thought was important in terms of synchronous communication and asynchronous forums and being able to see slides. But then once Collaborate came online, or the family of web conferencing systems, and our campus licenses Collaborate, so that's why we opted for Collaborate. And then Moodle as an open source course management system that we could, again, the benefit of Moodle is we can do the in-house tailoring. So we haven't joined the campus Blackboard instance because that would be more constraining than having our own in-house development. So I think that philosophy of trying to see what tools are available and how can that support the teaching and learning that we want to do. So I hope that's at least gives some little historical perspective.
There we go. Okay. Hi, I'm Kim Naples. I'm a GISLA student, and I just have a question about privileging the online learning environment over the traditional classroom environment. Because when I got accepted into GISLIS, I moved from New York to be here as an on-campus student, thinking I'm never going to take an online class because I just don't want to do that. That's not the environment I want. And then I ended up having to take reference class because it was only offered online. And I'm glad I did because Melissa Wong is amazing, and I'm really glad I was exposed to her. But at the same time, a lot of the conversations I have with other GISLIS students, it seems like more and more of the university resources are going over to moving more and more things online. And I was just wondering if you think that that's a trend that's going to keep happening here at GISLIS and maybe in library schools and just education in general, and what does that mean for losing the guide on the side kind of dynamic you were talking about.
Right. So I think there are many factors and so one thing we're trying to do to counter that is experiment with what we're calling hybrid. And so having simultaneously a face-to-face classroom experience, but what we're doing here, bringing in our virtual participants. That's a resource-intensive approach, but still worth experimenting with and saying, what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses? And so the stats I gave you earlier with 29 LIS programs fully online out of 59. So that's it's not just us placing, and it's not that we're placing more emphasis on online, it's how do we manage resources so that we don't have all the expertise we need to teach the courses we need to teach locally. And that's one reason we have online, on-campus students in the online courses. But at the same time, we are trying to ensure that the residential experience, you have the benefit as on-campus students of being in a huge research university, the opportunity to take courses in other departments if that's of interest. And that's not an option right now for our online students because we are relatively unique as a unit in having a fully online master's compared to other programs on campus, but that is beginning to change as well. There's more of an emphasis on reaching students at a distance, especially in professional masters. So I think that there are many factors that, and each school is having to figure out how best to, what is the sort of, also what's the philosophy within the university, what's valued in a given university context. And this remains a very residential centric campus. And so in a way we were ahead of the curve in terms of trying out online, saying that access was an important value for us and that implementing an online option was a way to accomplish that. So I think one of the conversations we're having vis-a-vis the on-campus program is how, on the one hand, be clear about to what extent can you expect to take a fully face-to-face program, and to the extent that that's not possible, what else? What are the other, why else would you come to campus? What are the other benefits of being in a residential environment that we can't yet replicate online, and are unlikely ever to replicate online. So I think that, but certainly looking at higher education more broadly, a number of LIS programs have, even ones that are largely serving regional or local in the sense that most of their students are within commuting distance. They're finding that I made an accreditation visit a few years ago to another school, and we heard from the on-campus students, they were disappointed there weren't more online classes, more face-to-face classes, and it was because they, even when they scheduled on-campus classes, they weren't filling, that there were, students were opting for online options. So I think there are a number of, that part of it is also just challenges in a more urban environment with commuting to a place versus being online. So each school will have a somewhat different profile, but I think overall there's, in higher education more generally, there's more acceptance of online, and we're going to see more instances of that, and I'm sensitive to the time too, so I'm happy to talk more offline, but it is a critical question and one that we continue to reflect on.
Great, is there any, okay, one more. Yeah, let's go ahead and take this question, then we'll catch up on the online as well.
I'm Caitlin, and I am an on-campus student here, and I actually have a question that's very similar to Kim's. I also came and intended never to take a LEEP class because I know that I really work better face-to-face. And I've now taken 6 or 7 LEEP classes because my interest area is predominantly LEEP. And I'm wondering what sort of things you're looking at going forward for people who, like me, really struggle with the online aspect. Those of us who have learning disabilities or otherwise learn differently, it can be very, very challenging. And so are we looking at additional hybrid courses, or what sorts of things are we looking at?
Yes, I think a combination of hybrid courses where the instructor is remote and I can't bring that instructor to you, and it's a course that's important for you. Also scheduling, as we get more demand for some of the courses, then we can schedule on-campus sections as well as online sections. So I think that when we're first starting up a specialization, for example, the way we don't necessarily have sufficient demand from on-campus or online to offer, multiple sections, but so we're always continuing to monitor how can we ensure that we want everyone to be able to learn in the way that's comfortable for you. So I'd say near-term solutions are more looking at the possibility of more hybrid delivery and being mindful whenever possible of flexing the schedule so that there might be an on-campus section one semester and an online section the other.
Okay, so great. So let's just take a moment to look at the what folks are saying through the chat. So, and this is kind of what my question relates to, so I can go back to it. But so it takes a specific person or subject combination to make it work best. And then also financial conditions are forcing schools, even outside of the U.S., to put programs online in the LIS field. And Martin's saying he studied in an international digital library program called Digital Library Learning, and it was residential based, but no scholarship, and now, again, only online. So, and I know we're running out of time here, but I think my question relates a lot to Caitlin's. On one hand, we want to think a little bit of the learner, but another thing that I think is a challenge is thinking about teaching. And so we have, I think we cheat ourselves when we talk only about GISLIS, but we have a great example of someone here at GISLIS that does a great job on the chat here. They're talking about Jeff and how he's a great teacher, whether online or in person. And so I think having instructors that have constructivist ways of teaching that are able to use the technology in a way that's active is really important. So I'm wondering sort of if you can speak at all to how, not just GISLIS, but if you know of how any LIS programs are training their online instructors specifically on how to address technology in this instructional environment and use the technology to bend to their learning outcomes in that way.
So the one thing I can reference, I'm sure there's a lot going on, but what I think has been valuable dimension of WISE is that at every LEES conference, the Association for Library and Information Science Education, WISE sponsors a pre-conference workshop on online education, very much focused on online pedagogy and how, and again, this past, in January, Kate McDowell was one of our presenters. We had a presenter from South Carolina and from Wisconsin-Madison talking about what about field experience? How does field experience fit into online education, for example, as a form of an opportunity for learning, and how do you facilitate that for all the students in an online class? And so I think that that's a small example of what we see as one of our responsibilities as a consortium. I said from the beginning, one of the things we're interested in is quality of instruction. How can we learn from each other and focus on what we identify as issues with online instruction, and again, recognizing that there are a lot of similarities in terms of the kinds of, we reach diverse student bodies, but we face some of the same challenges. So how can we leverage that, what the good, the quality instruction, and try to offer models that other instructors can benefit from.
Great, let's give her a round of applause. That's so great. Thank you.